Our political commentator, Thobani Zikalala, joins us to unpack developments and outcomes of the ANC Youth League elective conference, of course, that occurred over the weekend. Thobani, good afternoon. Thank you for your time with us here on the SABC.
Good afternoon, Lizelle. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, let's look at what transpired. Perhaps you could give us your thoughts on the manner in which the conference unfolded, 8-year hiatus, and the leadership emerging.
Well, Lizelle, first of all, maybe we must congratulate the elected leadership of the African National Congress Youth League, its National Executive Committee, as led by President Colin Malachi. Of course, 8-year hiatus, 8 years of losing hegemony of the youth movement in South Africa, 8 years without the ruling party having a voice that speaks to young people in this country. That means the ANC Youth League has this huge task of gaining lost ground. Of course, we congratulate them on a conference that seemed from outside, from us, very smooth in terms of how it ran its operations. Of course, there is a lot of cries up from many who are saying some processes were not fair. But again, we must always look at the idea that when we go into these congresses, are we going to spaces of performative democracy where we want to be seen to be performing democracy, or are we in essence making sure that in form and content, the democratic spaces of congresses are as democratic in such a way that this idea that every time an organization in this country holds a conference, there will always be those who cry and those who contest the processes of such Congress comes to an end, because the strength of our democracy is determined by those who act upon that space to make sure that democracy prevails. Again, if we look in terms of the processes, again, this Congress was unable to finish its business, which some of us will feel it's the core of business of any Congress, the issues of the program of actions and its resolutions in terms of how it's going to look at its program of action going forward. Of course, the president of the ANC Youth League, now the elected Colin Malachi, commits to the idea that there will be sittings that we are going to finish these discussion documents that I've had, because we are unable really to debate or even pontificate on the views of the ANC Youth League going forward, because the ANC Youth League has not resolved on anything apart from the constitutional amendments. The ANC Youth League has not resolved on anything. So the ANC Youth League has not taken a stance on any issues. Of course, the discussion documents are there, but the ANC Youth League has not taken a stance on the economic situation on the country because it has not resolved on anything.
Well, Thobani, I'm glad you've spoken about some of those issues, or questions rather, that also come to the fore just on the back of the Youth League conference that happened over the weekend. So you've spoken about the program of action going forward, and what are some of the issues that they are going to be championing? Many people asking the relevance of the ANC Youth League at this point, given the time frame we have as we edge closer to elections. And really what constituency they come with at this point to perhaps assist the ANC at large. How do you assess these dynamics?
If you assess, my sister, the work of the ANC Youth League, especially with this 8-year hiatus where they've not had elected leadership for this part. Of course, the last elected leadership, I think, was in 2015, disbanded, I think, around 2018, if I'm not mistaken. So in essence, it's about a 5-year hiatus in terms of real organized ANC League. But the 8 years is looking at the last time they elected leadership, which is correct. The issue here is the Youth League has lost its hegemony on the youth constituency in South Africa. Anyone who wants to go against that is maybe not realistic about the situation in this country. The youth voice in South Africa can be heard and can be almost controlled, and its political imagination can be seen to be much more heard and controlled outside of the ANC Youth League. This is why the ANC League has a big task, especially going into elections, to quickly reorganize itself, quickly repackage itself as a legitimate voice of the youth movement in South Africa, so that they are able to position themselves in a position that says they can speak for young people. Currently, the youth imagination and political imagination of this country can be heard speaking outside of the ANC League. Of course, we don't want to constantly be saying these things, but it seems as if Julius Malema, the former president of the ANC, almost took the DNA of what was the 2011 elected and the ANC of 2011. That DNA, he almost seems to have taken it and rebuilt it and redesigned it in the economic freedom fighters, and which means the ANC has lost ground in that space and needs to quickly reimagine itself outside of the 2011 conference and post the 2015 Congress, which many people view as the Congress that almost dealt with the legitimacy and the relevance of the ANC League. These are the things that the ANC League must ask itself. That looking at the challenges faced by young people, unemployment, issues of economic participation, and many other issues that young people are facing in this country, what is the positioning of the ANC League, especially when they are a unit of a governing party, which many people, of course, can attribute the many challenges that are in this country to them? How does the ANC League be able to position itself in such a way that it is viewed as a possible solution, and of course is able to do its job of rallying young people behind the banner of the ANC? Because that is going to be the difficult task. How do you make sure that the political imagination of young people in this country, you capture it so well that they see you as their legitimate voice and legitimate leader, and where you lead them towards the ANC, they see that you are that type of leadership, and where then that type of pathway you lead them to is correct.
Now, you're raising some pertinent points there, Thobani. Speaking on the issue of reimagining itself and also perhaps the renewal of the ANC at large, how, in your opinion, is the ANC Youth League going to manage factionalism within the party? How is it going to safeguard its autonomy? How is it also going to assess its relationship to the ANC so that it doesn't have interference from the ANC itself? Perhaps also its relationship to the Women's League going forward when we're assessing all these dynamics before 2024?
With the ANC and the ANC League being such big organizations, what we have termed political factions in this country and in the ANC is going to be very difficult to deal away with. But of course, if we had enough time, we're even going to argue that there are no political factions in the ANC. There is no such a thing. What exists in the ANC are groups of interest, and this group of interest can change looking at what interest is being served at the time and what people are interested to at the time. This is what exists in the ANC. Political factions, in the very scientific form of what a political faction is does not exist in the ANC. The autonomy of the ANC League is always going to be in question, especially when, of course, the ANC League seems, in the past, has seemed to not be able to manage its own affairs independently. Two, when in its processes of reimagining and rebuilding itself, it almost includes and almost relies on the ANC leadership or the elders of the ANC or those who have graduated from the ANC for direction, and because running an organization requires resources, continuously when the ANC starves
all right,
ANC of resources, starves those of the members of the ANC of resources. That means the independence of the ANC cannot be achieved, because every time they have to do their work, they have to revert back to their elders for resources and things like that, and that makes the ANC to lose its hegemony. Of course, it's going to be critical that the ANC is able to have good relations with all the leagues of the ANC, especially if it looks to influence and direct ANC policy going forward, and make sure that it also influences the direction and the governance of the ANC, to make sure that the ANC is able to cater to young people in a way that some people have accused that the ANC has failed to do so.
Well, the proof is in the pudding, Thobani, so we'll have to see, obviously, what transpires from here on too. Thank you for your time with us on the SABC.